The ancient prison moon of Kethera had orbited the dead planet for over 300 years. Deep within its metallic core, sealed behind layers of quantum locks and energy barriers, something stirred for the first time in centuries. The creature's consciousness flickered like a dying star coming back to life, awakened by vibrations it had not felt since its imprisonment began. Marcus Chun wiped the sweat from his forehead as he examined the strange metal he had discovered in the asteroid field. As a smith working for the mining corporation on the edge of known space, he had seen many unusual materials, but this one defied all classification. It hummed with an energy that made his tools sing when they touched it. The metal seemed almost alive, responding to heat and pressure in ways that violated everything he knew about metallurgy. The discovery had come during a routine mining expedition. Marcus preferred working alone in his mobile forge ship, drifting between asteroids and processing raw materials into useful components for the colony's ships. But this particular asteroid had been different. When his scanner picked up the unusual energy signature, he almost ignored it. Energy anomalies were common in deep space. Yet something compelled him to investigate. Inside the hollow asteroid, he found the metal. It wasn't or a natural formation. Someone had crafted it into a perfect sphere about the size of his fist, covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. The moment Marcus touched it with his bare hand, visions flooded his mind. Images of vast battles between beings of light and shadow. A dragon-like creature with scales that reflected the cosmos itself, fighting against armies of geometric ships. And then darkness, endless darkness, as the creature was sealed away. Marcus should have reported the find to his supervisors. Protocol demanded it. Any artifact of potential alien origin was property of the corporation. But the visions had shown him something else too. The creature in the vision wasn't a monster. It had been defending something, protecting a group of smaller beings from the geometric ships. In its eyes, Marcus had seen intelligence, nobility, and profound sadness. 3 days passed as Marcus worked on the sphere in secret. He tried every technique he knew, heating it, cooling it, applying various frequencies of sound and energy. Nothing worked until he accidentally cut himself on a sharp edge of his workbench. A drop of his blood fell onto the sphere, and suddenly the metal began to glow. The sphere unfolded like a mechanical flower, revealing a complex crystalline structure within. More symbols appeared, but now Marcus could understand them. They weren't just decorations. They were instructions. A map showing the location of the prison moon and the method to break the seals. The knowledge downloaded directly into his mind, along with a warning. The being inside had been imprisoned by the geometric hegemony, an ancient civilization that feared anything they couldn't control or understand. Marcus faced a choice. He could destroy the sphere and forget everything he had learned. He could turn it over to the authorities and let them decide. Or he could follow the map to Kethera and potentially release something that had been locked away for 3 centuries. The rational part of his mind screamed at him to walk away. But the memory of those noble eyes in the vision wouldn't leave him alone. The journey to Kethera took 2 weeks in his modified forged ship. Marcus had to bypass 3 security checkpoints and fake a mechanical failure to explain his deviation from the approved mining routes. As he approached the prison moon, his instruments went haywire. The entire celestial body was wrapped in layers of containment fields, each one designed to keep something in rather than intruders out. Landing on the moon's surface, Marcus felt the weight of his decision. The metal sphere guided him to a specific location, a seemingly unremarkable patch of rocky ground. But when he placed the sphere on the surface, the ground began to shift. Ancient mechanisms, dormant for centuries, groaned to life. A passage opened, leading deep into the moon's core. The descent took hours. Marcus passed through corridors lined with more of the geometric symbols, past disabled defense systems that had once been capable of destroying fleets. His path led him to a vast chamber at the moon's heart. There, suspended in a cage of pure energy, was the creature from his vision. It was both dragon and not dragon. Its body seemed to shift between solid matter and pure energy, scales rippling with the light of distant galaxies. Even imprisoned and weakened, it radiated a power that made Marcus's teeth ache. But its eyes, when they opened and fixed on him, held the same nobility and sadness he had seen in the vision. The sphere in Marcus's hand grew warm. New instructions flowed into his mind. The prison could only be opened by someone who chose to do so freely, without coercion or promise of reward. It was the one thing the geometric hegemony hadn't accounted for, an act of pure, selfless compassion from a species they had never encountered. Marcus approached the energy cage. The creature watched him with ancient eyes, not speaking, but somehow communicating its understanding. It knew the risk Marcus was taking. It knew the potential consequences, and it was giving him one last chance to walk away. But Marcus had made his choice the moment he saw those visions. He pressed his palm against the energy barrier, feeling it burn his skin. The sphere dissolved, its substance flowing through him and into the cage. The prison shuddered, geometric patterns fracturing and falling away like broken glass. The creature emerged slowly, as if remembering how to exist in physical space. When it finally stood free, it towered over Marcus, a being of impossible beauty and power. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, the human smith and the alien dragon. Then the creature did something unexpected. It bowed, lowering its cosmic-scaled head to Marcus's level. When it spoke, its voice resonated not in the air, but directly in Marcus's mind, speaking perfect human language learned in that instant of connection. 317 years I have been imprisoned, it said. 317 years of silence and darkness, punishment for defending those who could not defend themselves. The hegemony feared me not for what I had done, but for what I represented, a power they could not categorize or control. Marcus found his voice. Who are you? What are you? I am HFY, last of the stellar drakes. We were guardians once, protectors of a young species finding their way among the stars. The hegemony saw us as chaos, as threats to their perfect order. They hunted us, trapped us, erased us from history. I am perhaps the last of my kind. The dragon's form shifted, becoming more solid, more present. You have freed me, human, not for gold or power or promises of advanced technology, but because you saw injustice and chose to act. This is a debt I can never fully repay. Marcus shook his head. I don't want payment. The visions showed me what happened. It wasn't right. HFY's eyes brightened with something that might have been wonder. In all my eons of existence, through all the species I have encountered, this selflessness is rare. The hegemony could not understand it. They built their prison to be proof against greed, ambition, coercion, and deception. They never imagined someone would free me simply because it was the right thing to do. The dragon gestured, and the chamber around them began to change. The walls became transparent, showing the cosmos beyond. The hegemony is long gone now. Their perfect order collapsed under its own rigid weight. But their legacy remains, thousands of prisons like this one, containing beings whose only crime was being different. Will you help me find them? Marcus looked at the vast expanse of space, thinking of his simple life as a smith, his small forged ship, his uncomplicated existence. Then he looked at the dragon, this impossible being that had been caged for centuries, and he thought of others suffering the same fate. I'm just a smith, he said. I work with metal and fire. I don't know anything about ancient prisons or cosmic battles. You knew enough to free me, HFY replied. You knew enough to see past fear and prejudice to recognize injustice. The universe has many prisons, Marcus Chun, and not all of them are made of energy and geometry. Some are made of ignorance, others of hatred, still others of simple indifference. A smith shapes raw material into something useful. Perhaps that is exactly what the universe needs. The dragon extended one claw, carefully, gently. I offer you a choice now, as you offer me one. Return to your life, and I will ensure you prosper. Your forge will never lack for work, your ship will never break down, and you will live in comfort. Or come with me. Help me undo the hegemony's legacy. Free those who deserve freedom. The choice is yours. Marcus thought of the sphere, how it had responded to his blood, how the instructions had appeared in his mind. That sphere. It wasn't random that I found it, was it? Nothing is random, Kethrak Shan said. But neither was it destiny. It was possibility. The sphere was one of many I sent out before my imprisonment, scattered across space and time, waiting for someone with the right combination of skill and compassion to find them. You could have walked away at any point. The fact that you didn't, that was your choice alone. The weight of the decision pressed on Marcus. He was 43 years old, set in his ways, comfortable in his solitude. Taking on a quest to free ancient imprisoned beings wasn't exactly a career path he had considered. But then he remembered the sadness in the dragon's eyes in that first vision, the loneliness of centuries of imprisonment. My forged ship, he said finally. If we're going to be breaking into ancient prisons, we'll need equipment. Tools. The kind of stuff a smith would know how to use. Kethrak Shan's form rippled with what might have been joy. Then you will come? Someone has to keep your scales polished, Marcus said with a slight smile. And, apparently, the universe decided it should be a middle-aged human with burn scars and a bad habit of taking on impossible projects. The dragon laughed, a sound like solar winds through crystal chimes. Then let us begin. There is much work to do, and many who have waited far too long for their freedom. As they prepare to leave the prison moon, Marcus had one more question. These beings we're going to free, are they all like you? Dragons, I mean? No, Kethrak Shan said. They are as varied as the stars themselves. Some will be grateful. Others may be angry. A few might even be dangerous. The hegemony imprisoned many, not all of them unjustly. We will need wisdom to know who should be freed and who should remain bound. Will this change your mind? Marcus thought about it for a moment. No, but we'll need to be careful. Maybe set up some kind of evaluation process. Just because someone's been imprisoned doesn't automatically make them innocent. Wisdom beyond your years, the dragon murmured. Or perhaps simply human pragmatism. Either way, you're already proving why your species is remarkable. You balance compassion with caution, idealism with practicality. The hegemony could never understand such contradictions existing in harmony. They made their way back through the corridors, the dragon's presence causing long-dead systems to flicker with residual power. As they reached Marcus's forged ship, Kethrak Shan paused. Before we begin this journey, you should know the full truth. Freeing me has marked you. The remnants of the hegemony's automated systems will recognize you as a prison breaker. There may be those who still follow their old doctrines, who will see you as a criminal. Your peaceful life as a smith is over, regardless of what you choose now. Marcus climbed into his ship, running his hands over the familiar controls. Good thing I was getting bored anyway. Come on, let's see if we can modify the forge to work with whatever exotic materials these prison locks are made of. If we're going to be breaking and entering on a cosmic scale, we might as well do it properly. As the forged ship lifted off from the prison moon, Kethrak Shan coiled around its hull like a protective shield, his cosmic scales blending with the star field. Inside, Marcus began planning modifications to his equipment, his mind already working on the practical challenges ahead. Neither of them noticed the small geometric probe detaching from the moon's surface, its single eye tracking their departure. In the depths of space, in halls that existed between dimensions, something that had once served the hegemony stirred to awareness. The first prison had been breached. The chaos they had feared for so long had begun. But Marcus and Kethrak Shan flew on, unaware of the attention they had attracted, focused only on their next destination. The dragon had memorized the locations of every prison before his capture. The smith had the tools and ingenuity to break them open. Together, they would undo 3 centuries of injustice, one lock at a time. Their first target was a small artificial planet in a system that most star charts had forgotten. According to Kethrak Shan, it held a being called a Thought Weaver, imprisoned for the crime of teaching telepathy to a species the hegemony had deemed unready. It would be a good test of their partnership, the dragon's knowledge combined with the human's innovative approach to problem-solving. As they entered hyperspace, Marcus found himself humming an old work song his grandfather had taught him. The dragon picked up the melody, harmonizing with frequencies human ears couldn't detect. It was an odd partnership, the ancient cosmic being and the human craftsman. But sometimes, Kethrak-Shan reflected, the universe had a sense of humor about these things. The stars streaked past, and somewhere in the vast darkness, prisons waited to be opened, and beings waited to be freed. The work would be dangerous, the challenges immense, but Marcus had already learned the most important lesson. Sometimes the greatest act of heroism was simply choosing to help when you could have walked away. The forged ship disappeared into the cosmic distance, carrying its unlikely crew toward their first real test. Behind them, the prison moon of Kethra slowly began to crumble, its purpose finally ended. And across the galaxy, in prisons that had stood for centuries, hope stirred for the first time in ages. The liberation had begun. Marcus studied the star charts projected by his ship's navigation system, while Kethrak-Shan provided commentary on their destination. The Thought Weaver's prison was ingenious in its cruelty, an artificial planet that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, ensuring the prisoner experienced all realities at once without being able to focus on any single one. The hegemony feared the Thought Weavers more than most, Kethrak-Shan explained, his form wrapped around the ship like a living shield. They could teach any species to touch minds, to share thoughts and emotions directly. The hegemony saw this as chaos, as a breakdown of the barriers they believed kept order. Marcus frowned at his tools, considering which ones might work on multidimensional locks. Sounds like they were afraid of empathy. Hard to hate someone when you can feel what they feel. Precisely. You understand quickly for one so young. I'm middle-aged by human standards, Marcus protested, examining a plasma cutter that had served him well in asteroid mining. Though I suppose that makes me an infant to you. Age is measured differently across species, the dragon said diplomatically. What matters is wisdom, and that can come at any point in a being's existence. You showed wisdom when you freed me. Their journey took them through systems Marcus had only heard about in miners' tales. Dead worlds where civilizations had risen and fallen, nebulae that sang with radioactive harmonies. Space stations abandoned for so long they had evolved their own ecosystems. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but also full of graves. Tell me about the Thought Weaver, Marcus said as he worked on modifying his cutting tools. If I'm going to free them, I should know who they are. Kethrak-Shan's mental voice grew thoughtful. Shirvara, the Mind Mender, they were called. Neither male nor female as your species understand such things. They traveled from world to world, finding species on the verge of true consciousness and helping them make that final leap. The hegemony accused them of forcing evolution, of creating chaos where there should be orderly development. But that wasn't what they were doing. They merely offered knowledge. The choice to use it always remained with each species. But the hegemony could not accept that some beings would choose connection over isolation, understanding over ignorance. So they imprisoned Shirvara in a cage of fractured reality, where their gift became their curse. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest. The more he learned about the hegemony, the more he understood why they had eventually fallen. Any civilization that feared growth and change was doomed from the start. He channeled that anger into his work, creating tools that could function across dimensional barriers. They dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of a system that looked wrong to Marcus's eyes. The stars seemed to flicker between different positions, and space itself appeared to have texture, like fabric bunched and folded. At the center sat their target, a sphere that hurt to look at directly, existing in too many places at once. The prison, Kethrak-Shan said unnecessarily. We must be careful. The dimensional fractures can trap minds as easily as bodies. Stay focused on single thoughts. Do not let your consciousness wander. Marcus took a deep breath and guided his ship closer. The modified sensors he had installed began picking up the lock's signatures, patterns of energy that held the dimensional walls in place. It was like looking at a puzzle box made of mathematics and twisted space. There, he said, pointing to a fluctuation in the pattern. The locks are strongest where the dimensions converge, but that's also where they're most vulnerable. If I can disrupt the convergence point, the whole system should collapse. Clever, the dragon approved. But dangerous. You will need to enter the fractured space to reach that point. Marcus was already suiting up in his modified mining gear. Good thing I'm used to dangerous. Though usually it's just unstable asteroids, not reality falling apart. I will anchor you, Kethrak Shan promised. My nature allows me to exist across multiple planes simultaneously. I can keep you tethered to this reality while you work. They approached the prison carefully. Up close, the dimensional fractures were even more disorienting. Marcus could see himself reflected infinitely, each version slightly different. In one, he was younger. In another, scarred by burns that had never happened. In yet another, he wasn't human at all. Focus, Kethrak Shan's voice cut through the confusion. You are Marcus Chun, Smith, and Liberator. You are here and now. All else is illusion. Marcus gritted his teeth and activated his tools. The plasma cutter flared to life, its beams somehow staying coherent despite the fractured space. He began working on the convergence point, trying not to think about what would happen if he made a mistake. The work was unlike anything he had done before. Each cut had to be precise across multiple dimensions, accounting for variations in physics and reality. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite his suit's cooling systems. His hands moved by instinct more than thought, decades of experience guiding them when his mind struggled to comprehend what he was seeing. Then he felt it, a presence touching his thoughts. Not Kethrak Shan's familiar mental voice, but something else. Something desperate and fragmented, scattered across too many realities to form coherent thoughts. Sharvara, he whispered. The presence surged toward him like a drowning person grasping for rescue. Marcus felt his mind begin to fracture, pulled in infinite directions at once. But Kethrak Shan was there, a solid anchor in the chaos, holding him together. Almost there, Marcus gasped, making the final cuts. The convergence point flickered, destabilized. Get ready. The prison collapsed in on itself, dimensions snapping back into proper alignment with a sound like reality screaming. Marcus was flung backward, caught by the dragon's careful claws. Where the multidimensional sphere had been, a single figure now floated in normal space. Sharvara the Thought Weaver was nothing like Marcus had expected. They appeared to be made of crystallized thought itself, their form shifting between abstract concepts and physical shape. When they opened what might have been eyes, Marcus saw depths of experience that made even Kethrak Shan seem young. Free! Sharvara's voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, speaking directly to their minds. Free after how long? Time meant nothing in that place. Everything and nothing happening at once. 300 years, give or take, Kethrak Shan said gently. The hegemony is fallen. You are safe now. Sharvara turned their attention to Marcus, and he felt the full weight of their gratitude. It was overwhelming, like standing in warm sunlight after a lifetime of cold. A human. I have not seen your kind before. You are new to the cosmos. We've only been in space for a few centuries, Marcus admitted. Still figuring things out. Yet you freed us both, Sharvara marveled. Not for gain, not for knowledge, but because imprisonment was wrong. Your species, there is something special there. A balance of logic and emotion that even we who teach connection rarely see. Marcus felt embarrassed by the praise. I just did what anyone would do. No, both ancient beings said in unison. Then, Sharvara continued alone. That is precisely why you are remarkable. You believe that anyone would do this, which means you believe in the fundamental goodness of others. The hegemony could never understand such faith. Sharvara floated closer, their crystalline form catching the light of distant stars. I owe you a debt, Marcus Chun, as does Kethrak Shan. But I sense you do not seek payment. Just help us free the others, Marcus said. That's payment enough. Then I offer something else. Knowledge. Your tools are clever, but I can teach you to forge implements that work with thought as well as matter. Locks are not merely physical things. They're concepts, ideas given form. To truly free those the hegemony imprisoned, you must learn to work in the realm of pure thought. Marcus exchanged glances with Kethrak Shan, who nodded encouragement. I'm willing to learn, but I'm just a smith. I work with my hands, not whatever it is you do. Shervara's form shifted into what might have been a smile. All creation begins with thought. The forge in your mind shapes the metal in your hands. I will simply teach you to skip the middle step when necessary. It will make our work faster and safer. Over the next few days, as they traveled toward their next destination, Shervara began teaching Marcus the basics of thought crafting. It was frustrating at first. Marcus was used to the resistance of metal, the heat of the forge, the weight of his hammer. Working with pure concept felt like trying to grasp smoke. You are trying too hard, Shervara advised during one particularly difficult session. You know metal so well that you no longer think about working it. Your hands move by instinct. Thought crafting is the same, but you must first develop the instinct. Slowly, Marcus began to understand. He learned to visualize tools not as physical objects, but as purposes given form. A key was not metal shaped to fit a lock. It was the concept of opening made manifest. A shield was not a barrier of matter, but the idea of protection crystallized into being. His first successful thought construct was, appropriately, a hammer. It existed only in the realm of concept, but when he struck it against a practice lock Shervara had created, the lock shattered like glass. Excellent, Shivara praised. You learn quickly. The hegemony's prisons often exist partially in thought space. Now you can attack them on both levels. Their next target was a moon that had been hollowed out and converted into a maze. According to Kethrak Shan's memories, it held a being called a path walker, someone who could find routes between any 2 points in space, no matter how impossible the journey seemed. The hegemony feared they would teach others to bypass their checkpoints and barriers, the dragon explained. So they trapped them in an endless maze where every path leads back to the beginning. Marcus studied the scan data with growing anger. Each prison seemed more cruel than the last, designed not just to contain, but to torment. Let me guess, the Pathwalker's gift is what makes the prison work. They can't help but see all the paths, but none of them lead to freedom. Precisely. Breaking this prison will require more than cutting locks. You must give the Pathwalker a destination that exists outside the maze entirely. An impossible path, Shervar added, one that the prison's designers never imagined. Marcus thought about it as they approached the maze moon. The surface was covered in openings, each one a potential entrance or exit. But sensors showed they all connected to the same internal structure, a three-dimensional labyrinth that folded back on itself infinitely. What if we don't enter the maze at all? He said suddenly. What if we create a path that goes around it entirely? Kethrak Shan's mental voice was puzzled. The prison prevents that. Any attempt to breach the moon's surface is deflected back into the maze structure. In physical space, yes, Marcus agreed. But what about thought space? Shervara, could we create a conceptual path that exists outside normal dimensions? The Thought Weaver's form brightened with interest. A path that is not a path. A journey that reaches its destination without traveling. Yes, it could work. But it would require precise coordination. One of us must enter the maze to find the path walker while the others build the impossible route. Marcus was already reaching for his tools, both physical and conceptual. I'll go. I'm the only one who won't be immediately recognized as a threat by any automated systems. Too dangerous, Kethrak Shan protested. If you become lost in the maze, then you too pull me out through the impossible path we're going to build, Marcus said firmly. Besides, someone needs to explain to the Pathwalker what we're doing. They've been trapped for centuries. They might not trust a dragon and a thought creature appearing out of nowhere. The plan was risky, but it was the best they had. Marcus entered the maze through what appeared to be a maintenance shaft, his modified suit protecting him from the worst of the dimensional distortions. The corridors were maddening. Gravity shifted without warning. Walls became floors, became ceilings, and every turn looked exactly like the last. But Marcus had spent years navigating asteroid fields where one wrong move meant death. He developed a system, marking his path not with physical signs that the maze could erase, but with thought constructs that existed just outside normal perception. Slowly, methodically, he worked his way deeper. He found the pathwalker at what might have been the center of the maze, though direction had little meaning here. They were a tall, impossibly thin being with skin that showed star maps of places that didn't exist. Their eyes held the exhaustion of someone who had walked every possible path and found them all circular. Another illusion, the pathwalker said without looking up. The maze shows me rescuers sometimes. It thinks hope makes the despair sweeter. I'm real, Marcus said, sitting down across from them. My name is Marcus Chun. I'm here with Kethrak Shan and Sharvara. We're breaking open the hegemony's prisons. The pathwalker laughed bitterly. Kethrak Shan is imprisoned. Sharvara is scattered across dimensions. The hegemony told me before they sealed me here. You are just another cruel trick. Instead of arguing, Marcus held out his hand. Touch my mind then. Sharvara taught me how. See for yourself. The pathwalker hesitated, then reached out with one thin finger. The moment they made contact, their eyes widened. They saw Marcus's memories, finding the sphere, freeing Kethrak Shan, breaking open Sharvara's multidimensional cage. More than that, they felt his sincerity, his determination to help. You're real, they whispered. But how? Every path in this place leads nowhere. I've tried them all, millions of times. We're building you a new path, Marcus explained. One that doesn't exist in normal space. A conceptual route that bypasses the maze entirely. But you need to be ready to take it when it appears. Can you do that? The pathwalker stood slowly, hope dawning in their ancient eyes. I am Varental of the Endless Roads. I have walked between stars and danced through cosmic void. If you can create this impossible path, I will find a way to walk it. Outside the moon, Kethrak Shan and Sharvara were weaving something that defied description. It was a path that existed in the spaces between thought and reality, a bridge built of possibility and anchored in determination. Marcus felt it forming, a lifeline extending through dimensions the maze couldn't touch. Now, he said to Varental, the path is opening. Take my hand. The pathwalker gripped his hand with desperate strength. For a moment, nothing happened. The maze pressed in around them, tried to reassert its circular logic. Then Varental smiled. I see it, they said wonderingly. A path that is not a path. A journey already completed. How beautifully impossible. They stepped forward together, not through the maze, but around it, over it, beyond it entirely. The prison's logic screamed in protest as its fundamental assumption, that all paths must exist within its walls, was violated. Marcus felt reality blur, stretch, snap back into focus. They stood in the cargo bay of his forged ship, Varental still gripping his hand. The pathwalker looked around in amazement, then began to laugh. Not the bitter sound from before, but genuine joy. Free, they said. Free to walk the true paths again. Free to go where I choose. They turned to Marcus, then to Kethrak Shan and Sharvara. The hegemony is truly fallen. Their empire is dust, Kethrak Shan confirmed. Though their prisons remain, will you help us open them? Varental's form solidified, becoming more present, more real. I know every prison they built. I walked the paths between them once before my capture. Yes, I will help. It's time for the cage to fly free. Their growing group made an odd sight. A human smith, a cosmic dragon, a crystalline thought being, and now a mapper of impossible paths. But Marcus was beginning to understand that this diversity was their strength. Each brought unique abilities that complemented the others. Where next? He asked, already thinking about what tools they might need. Varental's star map skin shifted, showing locations across the galaxy. There's a cluster of prisons in the void between, where the hegemony kept those they feared most. The singer who could reshape reality with her voice. The dreamer whose sleeping thoughts became real. the guardian who refused to let them pass. Each prison is a masterpiece of cruelty, designed to turn the prisoners' gifts against them. Marcus felt the weight of what they were undertaking. Not just a handful of prisons, but hundreds, maybe thousands. Each one a puzzle to be solved, a lock to be broken, a being to be freed. It would take years, perhaps decades. Then, we better get started, he said simply. My forge needs modifications if we're going to be handling reality shapers and dream stuff. Sharvara, can you teach me to work with concepts that don't want to exist? And Kethrak Shand, we'll need your memories of these beings so we know what we're dealing with. As they planned their next moves, Marcus couldn't help but marvel at how his life had changed. A month ago, he had been a simple smith, content with his solitary work among the asteroids. Now he was part of something larger, something important. He was helping to undo centuries of injustice, one prison at a time. But more than that, he was learning. Each being they freed taught him something new. Sharvara showed him how thought and matter were merely different states of the same thing. Varental demonstrated that the shortest distance between 2 points might be to ignore distance entirely. And Kethrak Shand, in his quiet moments, shared wisdom accumulated over eons of existence. You're thinking deep thoughts, the dragon observed as Marcus worked on his latest tool modification. Just realizing how small my world was before, Marcus admitted. I thought I understood the universe because I could work with its materials. But there's so much more. And yet your small understanding is what freed us, Kethrak Shand reminded him. You saw a lock and knew it could be opened. Sometimes the most profound truths are the simplest ones. They were interrupted by an alarm from the ship's sensors. Something was approaching fast. Marcus rushed to the controls, his heart sinking as he saw what appeared on the screens. Ships of geometric design, angular and cold, moving with mechanical precision. The hegemony had automated defenses, Sharvara said quietly. Machines that would activate if the prisons were breached. We knew this might happen. How many? Marcus asked, already calculating their options. A full squadron, Varental reported, their ability to perceive paths showing them every possible approach. They will be here in minutes. Their weapons are designed to capture, not kill. They seek to re-imprison us. Marcus looked at his companions. These ancient, powerful beings who had put their trust in him. Not happening. Kethrak Shand, can you shield us? Sharvara, can you interfere with their targeting? Varental, find us an escape path. What will you do? The dragon asked. Marcus smiled grimly, reaching for his tools. Why do best? I'm going to build something. His hands moved with desperate speed, combining physical components with thought constructs. He had an idea, insane, probably impossible, but no more so than anything else they had done. The automated ships were designed to capture beings like his companions. But they had never encountered a human smith with a very specific set of skills. Done, he announced as the geometric ships entered visual range. In his hands was a device that shouldn't exist, part metal, part concept, wholly impossible. Everyone hold on. This is going to be rough. He activated the device just as the first containment beams lanced out toward them. Instead of shields or weapons, Marcus had built something else entirely, a reality forge. It took the fundamental stuff of space-time and reshaped it just for a moment, just in their immediate vicinity. The geometric ships found themselves attacking reflections, echoes of a forged ship that existed in 17 different locations simultaneously. Their precise targeting systems, designed for singular reality, couldn't process the contradictions. They fired again and again, hitting nothing but possibility. Now, Varental, Marcus shouted. The Pathwalker opened a route that threaded between the confused attacks, a path that existed in the margins of the temporary chaos. The forged ship slipped through like water between fingers, leaving the geometric squadron firing at shadows. They emerged 3 systems away, the reality forge smoking and half-melted in Marcus's hands. He dropped it quickly, his palms blistered despite his gloves. That was impossible, Sharvara said with something like awe. You created a localized reality storm. The theoretical energy requirements alone. I cheated, Marcus admitted, nursing his burns. I used the automated ship's own containment beams as a power source. Turned their weapons against them, just not in the way they expected. But I can't do it again. That was a one-time trick. It bought us time, Kethrak Shan said. The automated systems will adapt, but slowly. We must move quickly now. The more prisons we open, the more defenses will activate. Then, we change our approach, Marcus decided. Instead of taking them one at a time, we hit multiple prisons simultaneously. Divide their response. We are only 4, Varental pointed out. For now. But every being we free is a potential ally. Some will go their own way, but others will want to help. We build a movement, not just a rescue mission. They spent the next hours in planning. Varental mapped out prison locations, finding patterns in their placement. Shervara identified which prisoners might be most willing and able to help. Kethrak Shan shared memories of the beings they would encounter. And Marcus designed new tools, each one specifically crafted for rapid prison breaking. Their next target was ambitious, 3 prisons in the same system, each holding a being with complementary abilities. If they could free all 3 quickly enough, before automated defenses arrived, they would more than double their numbers. The Singer, the Dreamer, and the Guardian Marcus reviewed. Reality shaping, dream manifestation, and protective powers. If we can convince them to work together, we'll have a force that even the hegemony's machines will struggle to contain. Kethrak Shan finished. They dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, sensors immediately picking up the 3 prison structures. Each was unique, tailored to its occupant. The Singer was held in a sphere of crystallized silence. The Dreamer floated in a sea of nightmares made manifest. The Guardian stood frozen in a cage of their own protective instincts, unable to move without abandoning their post. We'll have to split up, Marcus decided. Each prison requires a different approach. Shervara, you take the Singer Thought and Sounder Cousins. Kethrak Shan, the Dreamer. Your cosmic nature should protect you from the nightmares. Varental, can your paths reach the Guardian? What about you? Varental asked. Marcus grinned, holding up a new device. I'll coordinate. This little beauty will let me assist with all 3 prisons simultaneously. Think of it as a universal lockpick that works across distance. They moved swiftly. Marcus remained on the forged ship, his new device creating connections between the 3 rescue attempts. He fed power to Shervara as they unraveled the silence binding the Singer. He anchored Kethrak Shan in reality as the dragon dove through layers of nightmare. He showed Varental the one path the Guardian could walk without abandoning their duty, the path to freedom itself. The work was exhausting. Marcus felt sweat running down his face as he juggled 3 complex operations at once. His modification began to overheat, protesting the strain. But he held on, driven by determination and the growing sense that they were racing against time. The first prison cracked, the Singer's crystal sphere shattering into notes of pure music. A being of living sound emerged, their form rippling with harmonics that made reality dance. Without hesitation, they added their voice to the effort, using sonic frequencies to help break the remaining prisons. The Dreamer woke next, nightmares dissolving into dreams of freedom. They were a childlike being whose thoughts immediately manifested as butterflies made of starlight. One gesture from them, and Varental's path to the Guardian became a golden road impossible to refuse. The Guardians stepped free last, their massive form radiating protective energy. They looked around at their rescuers, then nodded slowly. No words were needed. They understood what had been done and why. But their victory was short-lived. Sensors screamed warnings as geometric ships appeared throughout the system. Not a squadron this time, but an entire fleet. The automated defenses had adapted, responding to the multiple prison breaks with overwhelming force. Too many, Varental said, their paths showing no escape. They've blocked every route. Then, we make our own, the Singer declared, their voice weaving reality into new shapes. I've been silent for too long. Let them hear the song of freedom. What followed was a battle unlike any Marcus had witnessed. The Singer's voice shattered containment beams and twisted space. The dreamer made their hopes manifest. Suddenly, there were dozens of forged ships where there had been one, each one as real as imagination could make them. The Guardian wrapped them all in protective energy that turned attacks back on their sources. But the geometric ships kept coming, adapting to each defense. They were running out of time and options. Marcus, Kethrak Shan's voice was urgent. The reality forge concept, can you build another? Not the same way. I don't have the materials or the power source. What if we were the power source? Shervara suggested. All of us, channeling our abilities through your design. Marcus's mind raced. It was possible, theoretically, but the strain, it could kill us all if it fails. Then, we ensure it doesn't fail. The Guardian spoke for the first time, their voice like mountains talking. Build your forge, Smith. We will fuel it. With no time for careful construction, Marcus worked on pure instinct. He grabbed whatever materials were at hand, shaping them with both physical tools and thoughtcraft. The others gathered around him, each adding their power to the creation. The singer wove sound into the metal. The dreamer made the impossible possible. The Guardian ensured it would hold together. Kethrak Shan provided cosmic energy. Shervara bound it all with pure thought. And Varentau created paths for the power to flow. The result was not a device, but a collaborative artwork, a reality forge that existed because 7 beings believed it should. Marcus held it high as the geometric fleet closed in for a final attack. Together, he said simply, they activated the forge as one. Reality didn't just bend, it laughed. The geometric ships found themselves not in space, but in a cosmic gallery where the exhibits were their own fears made manifest. Their perfect order was confronted with chaotic beauty. Their rigid programming met the infinite creativity of freed minds. Some ships simply shut down, unable to process what they were experiencing. Others flew in confused circles, their targeting systems showing them wonders instead of enemies. A few tried to maintain their attack, only to find their weapons creating art instead of destruction. Now we run, Marcus said as the forge began to dissolve, its purpose served. That won't hold them forever. But as they fled the system, 7 beings working in perfect harmony, Marcus realized something had changed. They were no longer just breaking prisons. They were showing the universe that cooperation could overcome control, that diversity could defeat uniformity, that freedom was worth any risk. The word spread through hidden networks and quantum whispers. The dragon was free. The smith was breaking chains. And they were not alone. On a dozen worlds, in 100 hidden places, beings who had lived in fear of the hegemony's legacy began to hope. Some came to help. A void dancer who could slip between shadows. A memory keeper who remembered things that had been erased. A young star forger who wanted to learn how a human smith could reshape reality itself. With each new ally, their movement grew stronger. But Marcus never forgot that first moment when he had chosen to free Kethrak Shan. One human, one dragon, one choice. Everything else had grown from that simple decision to help someone in need. As their ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying them toward the next cluster of prisons, Marcus looked around at the diverse beings who had become his friends and allies. They were teaching him that the universe was vast and full of wonders. He was teaching them that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could reshape entire galaxies. The liberation continued, one broken chain at a time. And somewhere in the cosmic dark, automated systems registered the growing anomaly. The chaos they had been programmed to prevent was spreading. Soon, they would adapt fully, respond with measures their creators had designed but never implemented. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, 7 freed prisoners and 1 human smith sailed between the stars, planning their next impossible rescue. Behind them, geometric ships drifted in confused spirals, still trying to process the beauty they had been shown. Ahead lay hundreds more prisons, thousands more beings waiting for freedom. Marcus Chun, who had once been content to work alone among the asteroids, smiled as his companions debated their next target. He had found his purpose at last, not just as a smith who shaped metal, but as someone who helped shape hope itself. The forged ship disappeared into the cosmic distance, leaving behind only whispers of freedom and the fading echo of an impossible song.